Hi, I'm Leanna Chamish,
I'm Brian St. August.
and welcome to the Actors Hot Tub. And what are we discussing today?
I thought today would be fun to talk about actors' photography.
Okay, what's encompassed in that?
Well, I think headshots,
Uh-huh.
full figure shots,
Yes.
comp shots for models.
Oh, yeah.
Those of you who do those different things will know those terms. But generally, this is the photography that actors and models use in order to obtain jobs and also to be seen.
It is so very important that you have shots that represent you well. So I guess we're going to talk about how you get to having those shots that you can send around and put on the actors' websites and other ways that we find business. I guess my first question is, how do you find a good headshot photographer?
I think it's a great question. I think it depends on a lot of things. It depends on your area, what part of the country you live in, whether there are a lot of people doing entertainment business kinds of things in your area. If there are, then the chance of finding a good headshot photographer that shoots for entertainment is better. And if not, one thing that you can always do is ask your friends that are in the business.
Right. I think it is important to find somebody who shoots for entertainment. It's not as easy as going to Sears or wherever they do kids' portraits and things like that. It's a different animal, and you do need some recommendations. If you have a club for actors in your area, ask around. If you know casting directors and casting people in your area, ask around and look at their websites and get recommendations. Don't let yourself be steered toward a specific photographer from a casting director. You may want to go with their recommendation, but I think it's important that you shop around and definitely compare the prices of packages.
Mm-hmm. And also, when you get closer to identifying a potential photographer, you want to probably contact them, speak to them, because chemistry is very important in the actor-photographer relationship. If you're not comfortable with the person shooting you, you're likely not going to be able to demonstrate yourself in the way that you would like.
Well, I agree. You do want to have fun with the person you're with, and it does mean a lot. I had a headshot session with a photographer that didn't make me feel good about myself. I don't know, it was strange. I felt judged or something. Mm-hmm. Whereas with another photographer, I just felt relaxed and happy, and they seemed receptive to what I wanted and my ideas, and that just made all the difference in the world. So I think when you're going into the headshot session, you should know what it is you're getting in your package. How many changes of clothing, for example?
Mm-hmm.
That's typical for that?
Could be a 1 or 2 look shoot.
Yeah.
Could be 3 to 6 look shoot. And typically those number of changes have some degree of influence on the cost of the shoot because they're going to be longer. You're not going to just change and take 3 pictures in that outfit and then change again. That's a waste of your time and a waste of the photographer's time. So typically, they're going to shoot quite a few pictures of you in each look, which means that if you brought 6 looks, which is a lot,
Yeah.
but it's not unheard of, mm-hmm. It's going to be a relatively long shoot. And time is money in any business, and certainly is in photography. So it's something for you to really identify up front. First by yourself, and secondly talking to your photographer about it. Just how many looks you want to be, moving towards, being prepared for, what you're going to choose and bring with you.
Right, and it depends on your goals and also what kind of work you're going after. Listen, my last headshot session, I knew I just wanted one good headshot of me in a casual shirt. That's all I really wanted out of it. So I discussed it with the photographer ahead of time, and I think I brought 3 changes, and it was very simple and very quick. Low key, which is what I needed for my purposes. Now, if you need a full body shot, you and the photographer have to plan ahead for that because they may not have their background set up if they think they're just doing a headshot session, just torso or extreme close-up. So again, that is something you discuss in your pricing package, and then you decide how many changes you're going to have and work that out with the photographer, whether it's full body and close-up.
Right, and the headshots, the lighting for a headshot is very different than the lighting for a full figure. So you have to figure that every time you make a change like that, that the photographer's got to go to quite a bit of change themselves in order to accommodate your shoot. Leanna, one of the things that I think is really important as you're developing a relationship with a photographer is looking at what's going to be required as far as makeup is concerned. Who's going to provide it?
Oh gosh, that is so important. In our business, sometimes we talk about being camera ready, which means doing your own hair and makeup, or especially with headshots, you really should have a professional makeup artist for women and men.
Mm-hmm.
So discuss with your photographer. They have somebody they recommend, or you can book somebody, again, through networking, asking questions, who's a good makeup artist, and then arrange to have them show up at the same time at the photographer. So that is a separate charge, but it's extremely important. And you should ask whether or not hair is included with the makeup artist. They may not know how to do hair, so you should have your hair done or be prepared to touch it up on site if your makeup artist only works with your face. So do you get makeup?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I think every actor, whether they're male or female, they still need to be sure that the makeup that they're using for their shot is correct. Because makeup really has a lot of interface with the lighting that you're using as well. So, it's really important that the people that you're working with that are helping you with hair and makeup understand those qualities so that you as the actor who's just posing can rely on them to make the right decisions with that.
Right, so definitely get a makeup artist. This is an investment in your future. And as far as clothing choices go, you really should think about that strongly ahead of time. I think generally it's solid colors, non-distracting clothing, no big jewelry, nothing that's going to, if you're doing a headshot, nothing that's going to take away from looking at your face. You don't want them focusing on stripes or wild patterns or logos. Logos are a big no-no. You're not advertising any products, and you don't want them looking at giant cluster of diamond earrings or weird stuff. It's just you want them to see your face and your smile.
And I think another thing to consider with your clothing choices is how are you selling yourself or marketing yourself as a model or actor? Because those clothing choices are going to reflect how you want to be seen, how you want to be marketed. So if you're a younger actor that wants to appear kind of hip or, whatever your choice is, that you bring clothing choices that reflect that.
Right. For myself, I've usually made the decision that I wear very neutral and plain clothing that allow a casting director to project different identities onto me. I just want to be simple and clean. That's my choice. Again, I'm not trying to be young and hip. I'm trying to say, oh, she could be the doctor or the lawyer or the mother and all that. And if you're going for the full body shot, we talked about this a little earlier, you have to be sure about your underwear. For women, I think the choice of brassiere is really important. You want something that's smooth, doesn't show seams under your clothing or bumps. Are you wearing the right brassiere today?
I think so.
Okay. And for pants, you do have to be concerned about panty lines. So, not without getting into too much detail, make sure that the underwear you choose works with the outfit that you are wearing for these shots. Yes, you could maybe do some Photoshop later, but why complicate things? Wear the right undergarments that look good with your clothing. And if you don't want your bra straps to show, make sure that you've got the right kind of bra on. If your top is a halter or whatever, you just make sure that works.
I think that's something that's really neat about the Actors Hot Tub is that you have somebody like Leanna who's going to share that with you because, frankly, you go through a lot of the modeling books and so forth, they won't tell you, watch your brassiere. I will.
You're watching my brassiere?
Yes, of course. But that's why you have to make those choices when you're doing the shots so that you don't have somebody flaky like me out there just checking that out. Right. No, I think it's a great insight. And I really think it's one of the benefits of the Actors Hot Tub to be able to share that kind of information because you don't typically get that anywhere else. I'd also like to mention that one of the things when you get a headshot shoot is looking at the possibility of editing the shot afterwards in case there's a hair out of place or you have a zit or something that came through. How many of those kinds of edits will the photographer make? What's their charge for it, and so forth? I mean, those are important things to consider. That being said, though, I want to share something as open and honest as Leanna just did, and that's to say that it's great to have Photoshop and the different things it can do to disguise things on your person and that can make you look more perfect. But the truth of the matter is, very few of us are perfect. And I have a mole on my face that I've had since I was born. Now, there was a photographer at one time, a very good headshot photographer, who when he dressed up my shots, he took off my mole. And I said, you know what? I appreciate what you did. But in truth, if people book me to come in to audition from that headshot, and I walk in and they see a mole on my face, they might say, that's not what we saw. That's not what we wanted. So my recommendation to you is there are certain things we have that are part of us, and maybe we'd like them to be different, maybe we wouldn't, but they are who we are. Don't try to erase them. You can always diminish them a little bit. I can use makeup to lighten mine. But to make it go away would not be fair. It's not fair in the presentation, it's not fair to the client, and it's ultimately not fair to me. So keep that in mind when you make those decisions.
I totally agree. I've had photographers who have tried to Photoshop out crow's feet or this or that. I'm like, no, this is what people get. They have to see what I look like, my best me, admittedly, with the best makeup on. But please don't erase anything. I am secure enough to say, okay, I'm not a spring chicken, but you know what? That's what people have to, when I walk into the room, that's what they're going to see. So again, we are secure
Yes.
in our appearance, and sell what you have and be happy with what you have, and don't get stuck in portraying yourself as eternal youth, because then people will just be very confused when you walk into the audition room.
Yeah.
But again, like he said, erasing a stray hair or a wrinkle in your clothing, that's a different matter. And yes, that is something you should ask your photographer. How many shots am I going to get at the end of the shoot from you? How many of them are you willing to touch up, and what's included in my final price?
And what's my availability to use those photographs? Can I use them worldwide? Is it totally my choice? Can I have them in magazines? What have you? And I don't know what the answer is going to be. It's going to be a matter of your photographer's answer. But I strongly suggest that you ask them that question, because usage is what you're looking for. And you need to determine if there's any limitation to that usage.
And if this is your first time getting headshots, you should be prepared to take a lot of direction from the headshot photographer. So often they'll be asking you to move in just very small ways. So when they say just move a touch or move a hair or take a baby step, just be prepared for those kind of directions. It might feel a little awkward. They may say tilt your head, move your shoulder back, put your elbow there, all sorts of contortions. But if you're new to the business, these are the type of things you'll be asked to do on real shoots, especially if you go for print work. So get used to the idea of taking direction and knowing the photographer wants you to look great. It's in your best interest and his or hers to make you look fantastic. So learn how to take those directions and be prepared for them.
Excellent. And I think to piggyback on that, because trust is part of what you were just talking about, Leanna, how do you feel about photographers who have their studios set up in their home?
Wow. Okay, you're touching on a big topic which is important to women especially, but also men and young people. You have to be careful about walking into somebody's home. I would generally advise people not to audition or go places where they will be alone in an isolated area with somebody they don't know. So please check all the recommendations of photographer. Make sure they have a real track record. And if you don't think there's going to be somebody else around or that it's in an observable public place, take somebody with you. Take a family member, take a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend, and or have a buddy system set up where you're checking in by phone. So please be careful, do your homework, make sure this is a legitimate person with a track record, and take a buddy, ideally.
Yeah, because you can always introduce that person to the photographer as somebody that is a friend of yours who's conscious of the way you like to look, and that they're very careful seeing if your makeup is the way that you would like it, if there's anything that's changed, if you've changed clothes and your collar's down, that they give you that input. That person may in fact really do those things, but it's a nice way to introduce them so it doesn't sound like you only brought them because you're scared or you're concerned. That can be handled, I think, in a more unique, friendly way than that.
Right, and when you're interviewing the photographer prior to going, if you bring up the thought that you're going to bring somebody with you, gauge their reaction. If they object, then don't go.
Yeah.
Don't go. Big red flag if they say, no, my process is I work best when we're alone and we can interact, and your antennae should go up then. So, and along those lines, if you're at a photography session, hopefully somebody's with you or you feel safe with this person. But if you happen to be isolated and alone and they start asking you to do something sensual or to reveal more than you had agreed to beforehand, maybe you do like to do sexy shoots or something with nudity. If that's agreed to beforehand, fine. Right. But if someone starts to coax you into it, I'd say run. Get out of there as fast as possible.
Excellent.
Absolutely. So there are also some kinds of shots that people take for comp cards where you might be outside and not in a studio situation. Can you explain what happens at those?
Well, I think that's something, again, you need to talk to the photographer about in advance of the shoot. I just, after I had done a studio headshot shoot, I approached that same photographer and asked him if he could do some shots of me outside in some more city-fied kinds of locations. And he was agreeable to that, but recognized that in doing it, there are certain things he can't bring from the studio, certain things he has to mimic from the studio, such as reflectors and so forth, to be able to give him that same control of his lighting. So let him know up front, let her know up front, and you'll get the best shoot that you can get. It's always nice to have a wide variety of shots. If they're all studio shots, that gives your audience one impression. If they're a mixture of studio and more location shots, that gives them another mix of ideas about how you look and how you can look.
Right, and I just want to make sure that we've made the distinction between headshots that an actor might have versus shots that a model might have for what has been known in the industry as a comp card, showing characters and or glamour and fashion photography. For my purposes, what I generally get are headshots because I'm pretty much just an actor. I do print occasionally, but I have a few comp card shots, which are what models get, where I have portrayed myself in some characters such as a doctor and a woman shopping in the supermarket and things like that. So I have those just in case, even though it's not my primary goal. So when you're going for your session with a photographer, know if you're getting one or the other or both headshots and or comp card shots. Would that be accurate to say?
It would be for me.
All right. So after the session is done, how do you get the shots delivered to you?
Sometimes they're delivered online. That's the most common way now. Dropbox is very common for that.
Yeah.
Because even if they reduce the shots to a smaller file format, it's a lot of them. So it's a lot of space. So Dropbox is common. There are some other types of situations like that. There are still photographers who call their actors and models in to view them in their studio together. And there's a benefit to that because you can then chat with the photographer to get their impression, why they like this versus that. And also, if you saw something in one shot that you would like to have a little differently, if it's something that they could, in fact, edit for you afterwards.
Mm-hmm. So what has been happening with me lately is somebody will deliver electronically, usually via Dropbox now, a whole lot of, maybe the entire photo session for me to choose which ones I would like finalized and touched up and reframed for final distribution. So that's generally what you do. You have the opportunity to look through all the shots and say to the photographer, let's say if they said 5 retouch shots are included in your package, you say, here are the 5 I want. They will resize them 8 by 10, take out any wrinkles or spots in your shirt and the flyaway hairs, and then you have a shot that is nice and clean and ready to send out, or to a reproduction house if you're going to get physical copies made, which we don't do much these days anymore, do we?
Not that often.
Kind of a
Not
need.
like we used to.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I usually do with my shots that I get from the headshot photographer now. I used to send it to a reproduction house where they would superimpose my name and send me 100 hard copy headshots. But since we're not sending out many hard copies these days, I will take the finalized shot from the photographer. I will bring it into a photo editing program, add my name onto it, and then I use that when I send out, when I electronically submit for projects, so that my name is actually on the shot, so they will know who I am. I just don't like to send out shots that don't have my name on it. Do you
And,
do that too?
Yeah, I do, and
Okay.
quite a few of the casting directors want your shots sent to them electronically with that kind of identification on the shot,
Right.
with your name and file format and so forth.
Yeah. So I think it's really important that you get shots that show who you are and who you want to portray. We talked a little earlier about being comfortable in your own skin. If you realize that you are a certain age and a certain type, I would play to that and make sure that you've got a lot of shots that show that off, and make sure that you are portraying the type that you want to.
I always tell the photographer for my editing afterwards to Photoshop me to look about 30 years younger than I am. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, but why not ask?
It creates work for photographers, gives them something
Keeps them
to do.
business. That's right.
Keeps
That's
them
right.
off the street.
Exactly. All righty.
Oh, I think we have covered a lot about headshots. If you think there's something we didn't cover, if you want us to go further about what you do with these shots and where you submit them to now that you have them, we will go into that on a later episode. Let us know in the comments below what you'd like us to talk about next.
Sounds great. Look forward to talking to you then.
See you soon in the Actor's Hot Tub.
Bye-bye.